Today, the top Democrat in the Senate says they're still going to vote on President Biden's social spending bill, even after Senator Joe Manchin, who holds the key to the vote, says he won't support it. And Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeting about his massive tax bill this year. How does it compare to other years, and why is it so big? And businesses are preparing for higher shipping prices next year. We hear from some industry experts on what they think is behind the rise. That and much more coming up on NTD Business. Good evening. Great to have you with us. I'm Paul Graney. The Senate will vote early next year on President Biden's nearly $2 trillion social spending bill. That's despite opposition from Democratic Senator Joe Manchin. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer unveiled his plan for the vote today. It comes after Manchin told Fox News Sunday he won't support the bill. Besides adding to the national debt, he says he's also concerned about inflation.
Where I'm at right now, the inflation that I was concerned about, it's not transitory, it's real, it's harming every West Virginian.
In response to Manchin, the White House said Sunday his comments are at odds with his discussion with the president, and the administration would find a way to advance the bill. Senator Schumer says they're going to vote on a revised version of the Build Back Better plan passed by the House, and he vows to keep on voting on it until they get something done. And stocks on Wall Street added to the recent string of losses today. The Dow fell 433 points, 1.2%. S&P 500 fell 53 points, 1.1%. And the Nasdaq today falling 189 points, about 1.2%. So joining us is Lance Roberts, Chief Strategist with RIA Advisors. Roberts helps manage over $1 billion in assets with RIA. Lance, Merry Christmas. Great to see you.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas to you too.
Lance, we heard a lot about the Santa rally we were supposed to be seeing. It looks more like the Grinch today on Wall Street. What do you think's happening?
Sell-off? What sell-off? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Just a little bit of red goes right on with Christmas, right? No, look, again, these seasonalities that occur in markets, the timing, we look back and we say, well, seasonality should start on this date, and that's based on averages of markets. And so, it's important as investors not to get too, taken by a day's sell-off. The sell-off today is certainly, a bit concerning. We came down and broke the 50-day moving average. So there are some technical violations that are certainly concerning here, but we've already had a good bit of selling. And, this has kind of got the markets back to an oversold position. We had a lot of selling exhaustion, right? And we talked about this, mutual funds we had a lot of gains this year. Mutual funds needed to distribute those gains. So we're finishing that process up here. I suspect that in the next couple of days, we'll see a bit of a rally here. Now, and don't take this for granted. I mean, if the sell-off has been, more than you like, use whatever rally we get in the next few days to maybe lighten up risk a bit in your portfolio, reduce some of your equity exposure. Moving into early next year, we do have the Fed hiking rates, tightening monetary policy. That typically doesn't bode well for returns in markets. So again, you may want to think about just reducing risk a little bit, kind of rebalancing portfolios until we kind of let things sort out a bit.
What do you think? Are you still kind of bullish on the stock market, even given tightening by the Fed, et cetera, as we go into the new year?
Well, I'm less optimistic. I shouldn't say that. I'm always optimistic about markets. The whole goal of investing is to make money over time. There's always an opportunity to make money in markets. It's not necessarily always in stocks. And I think that's the part we've got to think about next year. Historically, when the Fed starts hiking interest rates, tightening monetary policy, reducing the amount of quantitative easing they're doing, and now when you start thinking about less liquidity from, the Build Back Better plan looks dead at this moment. That's less liquidity coming to the markets in terms of fiscal policy. That certainly puts both economic growth as well as potentially earnings and profit margins under pressure next year. So we may want to start thinking about more of a rotation to value next year, rethinking about how much equity risk we're taking, particularly in stocks that have very poor earnings quality, and start thinking about maybe fixed income next year as a component of the portfolio, because bonds should perform well in an environment where the yield curve flattens or actually declines.
And on the Build Back Better, you think that a package like this is kind of priced into stocks? You think today was kind of surprise for the market? Whoa, it's not, it looks like it's dead, as you mentioned. You feel that this is the reversal of that pricing in?
No, I'm not sure that the Build Back Better plan was ever priced in, so to speak. A lot of it was about the Fed, $120 billion a month, zero interest rates. There was hope for the Build Back Better plan and that it would help provide some more liquidity. And now that looks to be extracted, yes, stocks are pricing in potentially slower economic growth. Goldman Sachs this morning reducing economic growth for next year by 1% in the first quarter and 0.5% in the following 2 quarters. That brings those projections in line with our own, which is really closer to 2.5% economic growth next year, more in line with long-term expectations. And potentially we're going to see a flattening of inflation and kind of more deflationary pressures now with that lack of liquidity. So again, there are some things to be concerned about. And yes, markets are trying to reprice that in a bit.
Lance Roberts, Real Investment Advice. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure as always. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
And the World Economic Forum has been postponed because of COVID fears. It was supposed to begin in January in the Swiss town of Davos, but has been rescheduled for the summer of 2022. Some countries are taking strict precautions with lockdowns and restrictions as new variant spreads, Omicron variant. Organizers say an online series of, quote, State of the World sessions will be held instead to, quote, focus on shaping solutions to the world's most pressing challenges. According to the World Health Organization, Omicron cases are doubling every 1.5 to 3 days. In the United States, it's expected to become the dominant strain in the coming weeks. And for one of the world's richest men, Elon Musk has reportedly paid relatively little in taxes. ProPublica says he paid no federal income taxes in 2018, but for 2021, he says he's paying a massive amount, possibly the most in American history. NTD's Olin Richards has more.
On Sunday night, Elon Musk tweeted, "For those wondering, I will pay over $11 billion in taxes this year." Nicholas Creel, a professor of business law at Georgia College and State University, says this could be the biggest tax bill in American history. Creel says Musk is paying it because he sold stock.
So he could buy more stock. Almost all of Elon Musk's money, almost all of it, is tied up in Tesla stock. And so if he wants to be able to go exercise some of those stock options he has as CEO, the only way to have the cash to do that is to sell stock he has on hand. So it puts him in this very weird situation that the only way to get stock is to sell stock first. And that, of course, comes with a pretty massive tax bill.
Stock options give a person the right to buy stock at an agreed-upon price. Armini Logjam is the founder of Logjam Group. Logjam says when Musk exercises those options, it's considered income, and he must pay taxes on them.
Let's say you're given options at $1 and the current price is $10, and you want to have to exercise them. So your exercise is for $9, and let's say you have just one option. So that $9 will be taxable income for you. It will be reported on your W-2 as wages.
Forbes says Musk is the world's richest man, worth around $237 billion. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And software giant Oracle is buying electronic medical records company Cerner for over $28 billion. It means Oracle will now have a stronger presence in healthcare and have access to Cerner's healthcare data. It could be used to train and improve Oracle's AI-based cloud services. The deal is Oracle's biggest since 2004 when it acquired business software firm PeopleSoft. Cerner is the second largest medical records software firm in the United States, behind Epic Systems. And lumber prices are on the move again. According to pricing service Random Lengths, cash prices have jumped 65% since October to $915. That's the biggest gain on record. Random Lengths says demand exceeded supply and sawmills are aggressively raising prices, hoping to slow orders. Lumber prices are cited repeatedly as people debate whether inflation would go down after lockdowns. Analysts and traders say that prices might even climb further through winter, as usual ahead of the spring building season. And expensive shipping was another big theme this year, along with lumber, and unfortunately, it looks like it'll continue into next year. Businesses are bracing for price increases as we move into 2022. NTD's Olin Richards has the details.
Transportation and logistic providers are bracing for a big jump in cost next year.
We're feeling the pinch now, and I foresee that staying around a little while in 2022.
Amid the supply chain woes, the freight sector has seen increasing prices this year, including for delivery, shipping, trucking, and warehousing. The founder and CEO of KUA Corporation, Paul Gunn, describes the challenge.
Things are sitting at the port, and moving containers around is just getting to an astronomical price for most companies.
According to CAS Information Systems, domestic shipping rates for moving goods by road and rail are up about 23% this year compared to last. And overall logistics prices hit a record high in November, up 14% year over year. Gunn says he thinks the higher cost for trucking companies comes down to spending more to attract qualified drivers in a tight labor market.
They need more people who are quality drivers, because if he understands where a road breaks down or there's a delay, he knows how to get around it. And that's really where that trucking shortage is.
The managing director at Capture, Bob Bilbrook, says he thinks the main culprit of the price increase is the Omicron virus.
As of this morning, the Israeli government announced that they are canceling travel to the U.S. So that's one government of hundreds more that potentially could do that across the world. And if that happens, that's going to lock the economies up for not only our country, but for many other countries.
Bilbrook suggests people need to learn to live with this virus in the long run. He says if governments overreact and panic, the public might be facing turbulent times ahead. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And as supply bottlenecks leave businesses struggling to get supplies, we follow one Chinese-made computer game controller from the production line to a warehouse in the United States. It proves no easy journey. NTD's Chenny Wu reports.
The news is full of stories about supply bottlenecks, about how firms can't get goods from production lines to store shelves. We followed one Chinese export to see what that really means. These game controllers start life in a factory in China's Guangdong province. From there, they go onto ships headed for the United States' final destination, big-name stores like Best Buy and Walmart. Or at least that's the theory. The reality now is much more complex, with supply chains thrown into chaos in the wake of the pandemic. Fraser Townley owns manufacturer T2M.
It's impossible to get containers, and once you've got the containers, it's impossible to get the drivers, and once you've got the drivers, it's impossible to get things scheduled and timed and what have you. So logistics has been something we've never experienced before.
Like countless Western firms, T2M doesn't have its own factory. Production is done by a Chinese firm. But now it's hard to get goods into the U.S. even if you can get them out of China. Labor shortages mean a record number of container ships are stacked up, waiting to unload outside U.S. ports like Long Beach in California. The problems have driven a surge in costs.
This time last year, I remember being extremely upset that I was being charged somewhere between $3,500 for a 40-foot container to get here. Now, if they ask you for $20,000, you ask where do I sign? Where do I pay? It's crazy.
The problem is repeated worldwide, and firms have been forced to innovate. T2M used to ship goods directly to its warehouse near Boston, Massachusetts. Now they have to go overland from California, a more expensive route. All these problems add to costs and are a big factor behind soaring consumer prices worldwide. Now the White House has a task force looking at ways to ease the logjam. Like firms everywhere, T2M just hopes its products get to the shops in time for the holidays. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
And shares of another Chinese property developer called Chinese Estates Holdings fell by a record after the company failed to get enough support from shareholders to go private. The property firm dropped as much as 35% in Hong Kong trading Monday morning. Last Friday, some shareholders rejected its plan to be bought out. Chinese Estates was a major shareholder of Evergrande before reducing its stake in August, planned to sell all its shares in Evergrande, but said it would lose $1.4 billion if it sold its entire Evergrande holding. With that, we're going to take a quick break, but still to come. The new SpiderMan movie has a massive opening day, heading for box office records. Find out how much it brought in. And a Roman villa goes up for sale for $500 million. Not because of its swimming pool or golden doors and windows, but because it houses a rare, one-of-a-kind mural. That and more coming up, NTD Business.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and my pillow, but millions of you out there. Before all this started, I had already written in my memoir, I dedicate this book to anyone that's looking for hope. Well, right now, we're all looking for hope. I believe that my story is going to bring inspiration and hope to everyone. By the time you're done reading my book, you will believe that with God, all things are possible. To thank you all for your support, I'm offering some of my best prices ever on my pillow products, including this exclusive bundle. You get my book and these 5 My Pillows. They all have beautiful scenes and verses from the Bible, such as Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. This 6-pack bundle is regularly $219. Now it's just $99.98 and free shipping with your promo code. Go to mypillow.com and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below. Thank you and God bless.
Oh, hey, doesn't it feel like there's communists everywhere? In fact, the Chinese Communist Party has been subverting America from every angle. So whether it's compromising our politicians, controlling Hollywood, manipulating Wall Street, or infiltrating our schools, they have stopped at nothing to take down America. And I believe that in order for us to not become like China, we need citizens who know the truth. So go on over to GetEpic.com, stay informed with a subscription to the Epic Times, and you will get instant access to this infographic.
Shall we begin?
People are starving, sir. They're unable to buy a simple loaf of bread. Can you make any exception to the mark 666?
None. If you don't get the mark, you don't eat. It's that simple. My goal has never changed. People will bow down to me or they will die.
Welcome back. The US government has been amassing a huge amount of Bitcoin over the years. It started in 2013 when it took down the dark web marketplace Silk Road. But what's the government doing with its Bitcoin now? NTD's Phil Zhou has the story.
The government often has auctions selling off its stockpile of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin that it seized from criminals.
The first use case for Bitcoins was buying and selling drugs on the Silk Road darknet market. So when the Silk Road got busted, the US government had a massive pile of Bitcoin.
In 2018, the government sold 500 Bitcoin to Riot Blockchain for $5 million. Today, those Bitcoins are worth around $23 million.
They've got a huge pile at the moment. They're working out how to sell and when to sell because the market is up right now. But the government doesn't really try to play the market as such. It just tries to sell.
Back in 2014, venture capitalist Tim Draper bought 30,000 Bitcoins from the government for around $20 million. Today, that batch is worth over $1 billion. Philip Devine is the founder of Crypto Blades, a popular NFT video game that has over 1 million users. It's given away $16 million in prize money this year alone. Devine says the US government should keep the Bitcoin and not sell it.
They could actually start to generate some sort of passive income on this, participating in this economy and in this blockchain ecosystem.
He says the government can use the profits for bigger government projects.
Should be earning over 40% year over year without having to dip into the actual Bitcoin themselves, which they can be using to fund all of these other plans that they have in mind versus just selling the Bitcoin outright and losing access to that medium and losing access to decentralized finance.
With the rise in popularity, the seizure of crypto is also making it into the news more often, including the FBI's breach of the Colonial Pipeline hackers' Bitcoin wallet earlier this year. Phil Zhou, NTD News.
So joining us is Congressman Warren Davidson from Ohio. Mr. Davidson is on the House Financial Services Committee. Congressman, great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Always an honor. Thanks for having me.
Congressman, it seems every day, I'm sure you're following it as well, we see a new piece of news that seems to indicate cryptocurrency is going more mainstream. At the same time, at least every week or month, we have a big piece of news about another crypto scam, sometimes in the field of tens of millions or more dollars. What do you think? What are your views on this as a member of the House Financial Services Committee? Is there going to be regulation in this space?
Gosh, I hope so. I mean, we've been calling for it really since 2017. If you remember back, that's when the ICO market was blowing up. And really, there are a lot of people that are participated in essentially pump and dump scams. And the legitimate players in this space have been begging for clarity. Unfortunately, under Chairman Clayton and now under Chairman Gensler, they've had the same kind of hands-off approach and, in a way saying hands-on, like, no, come talk to us, which is designed to kill every project. In 4 years, Jay Clayton cleared 2. So it really is not keeping up with a space that's grown from nothing to nearly $3 trillion of market share.
It's been incredible to watch it. What's the solution? What are you proposing should happen?
Well, in 2018, we gathered a group of, investors, innovators, people that operate markets, big companies like the New York Stock Exchange, Fidelity, State Street, up to early stage startups and entrepreneurs, venture capital folks. And we said, what do we really need to do to get clarity in this space? And the biggest thing is to create a bright line test between what is a security and what is not. Frankly, it's turned into kind of interpreting modern art, and it depends on who's looking at it as to whether it looks like this fits what's called the Howey test or it doesn't. So we need to simplify it and make it clear, not just to the investors and the innovators, but to the regulators. Here's what a security looks like if it's a digital asset.
I think finally we see a lot of traditional players, traditional banks, etc., looking at blockchain solutions. Anything on the government side that could be optimized or improved in that space?
Well, there are a lot of things that can be done. If you look at blockchain as a secure way, I mean, gosh, I just read a very scary book called "This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends." It's about cybersecurity and vulnerability in cyber globally, and just due to the architecture of the internet. And frankly, Bitcoin kind of came up with a different way to establish trust. It assumes no trust. It takes a lot of computing power, but it's incredibly secure. And I think a true distributed ledger technology would be an appropriate way to solve many of the computer security needs of the government versus the traditional, central database with trusted credentials. I think the next thing on it is if you look at accounting, the idea that we could have a public blockchain and we could hold our government spending accountable, I think that would be an incredible resource for the Office of Management and Budget and for the public. You'd know where all the U.S. dollars went.
Give us lots of work to do here at NTD as well. Congressman Warren Davidson, really appreciate it. Merry Christmas and thank you so much.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
And Ferrari is planning to shake up its leadership structure, one of the first major moves for its new CEO. The car maker says 3 top managers will leave. One of those who decided to leave is the Chief Technology Officer, Michael Leiters. The new CEO started in September with the task to drive Ferrari into the era of electrification. Ferrari said the planned reorganization will be in line with its strategic goals of exclusivity, excellence, and sustainability. Details of the restructuring will be unveiled on January 10th. And SpiderMan No Way Home, the latest movie in the Marvel series, notched a massive opening day at the box office Friday, bringing in more than $121 million, according to Sony. That's the second highest opening day in box office history and also the highest opening day for a month of December. And after a single day, the film has already the highest grossing opening of any movie during the pandemic. Some industry analysts believe the film could go even higher. And YouTube TV and Disney have reached a distribution deal. That means YouTube's streaming platform is restoring the Disney-owned channels that were dropped after earlier talks fell apart. That includes channels like ESPN and FX. Disney says the deal was reached on fair terms that are consistent with the market. And while neither company disclosed the financial terms of the deal, YouTube warned last week it would only renew its contracts with Disney if the company offered, quote, equitable terms. Sunday's agreement ended a 2-day blackout. And a private villa that's thought to be home to the world's only Caravaggio mural is going up for auction in Rome. His Texan owner describes living with the priceless work of art, and NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
Villa Aurora in Rome will go up for auction on January 18th for $565 million. The property is now inhabited by the third wife of the late owner, Princess Rita Boncompagni Ludovisi, 72, a Texan formerly called Rita Jenrette.
When I got to Rome, I thought, this is the most beautiful city I've ever seen. And then we went to the Trevi Fountain, and I took a coin and I said, oh, I wish that, I hope I marry an Italian and live in Rome for the rest of my life.
Hidden inside is the world's only mural painting by Baroque painter Caravaggio. It depicts an allegorical scene with the gods Jupiter, Neptune, and Pluto representing the transformation of lead into gold.
Caravaggio ceiling is an oil and plaster painting. It is not a fresco. And he really didn't want to do it, but his mentor, Cardinal Francesco de Monte, asked him to because he was an alchemist, he was an alchemista, and that was his alchemy room.
The luxurious property is the only remaining portion of the 17th century Villa Ludovisi. Princess Ludovisi recounts her 18 years living in the villa in close proximity to Caravaggio's work. She now hopes that whoever buys the house will recognize its priceless artistic, historical, and cultural value.
For me, this represents the happiest years of my life. And you know, it's been such a privilege. It's been my privilege to be here with my husband and to restore this house as much as we could.
The site is protected by the Ministry of Culture. Once a bid has been agreed upon at auction, the state will have the option of buying the property at the same price. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And Christmas gift givers, listen up. The time to send presents and well wishes to loved ones is now, like today. While some shipping deadlines have passed, there are still a few options. For shipping UPS, you have a December 21st deadline for the 3-day select service when shipping in the United States. And if you're shipping FedEx Express, you can buy yourself some more time, with deadlines starting December 21st and ending December 24th for same-day delivery. So unless you want to shell out big bucks for overnight or rush delivery, get on it. That's the latest business updates for today, but you can still catch myself actually reading the NTD Evening News at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, it's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.